So, Allan, one of my favorite conversations is about the age of the soul, or the level of consciousness.
Yes.
And how that creates a huge gap in my personal opinion in regards to the relationship or like the intimate bond between two people.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us furthermore what is the age of the soul?
Absolutely. So, the age of the soul refers to how well a soul has integrated experiences. Right? Like there is, in the physical realm, we experience time, but time is a manifestation of this illusion. Wow, dog. And so, if we think of it in an ageless environment where there's no real time, the only difference between a soul, one soul to the other, is how well it's integrated the experiences that it's had. And the experiences are had while incarnate. So we do this over and over. People don't realize just how many lives you have. It's a lot. And so you just keep going on this treadmill. You incarnate, discarnate, discarnate. And as you go through these experiences, if the lesson's been put, just by virtue of having a life, you're accumulating experiences. But if you're really integrating them, which is learning from them and then elevating to a high vibrational state through them, then your soul is progressing on a relative basis quite quickly. And as that soul progresses more and more, when it comes in as part of an integration and an incarnation, those lessons are available as part of its intuition and its judgment and its perspective. And so if you take one soul that has integrated a ton of lessons, it's quite sage or wise. You take another soul that has really not integrated many of the lessons at all and is somewhat stuck in their journey. Those souls are going to be, in the physical realm especially, but also in the spiritual realm, quite incompatible. And so the relationship that would ensue, the gap between those souls, or the gap in consciousness, would be a way of measuring the incompatibility of the relationship. Or put another way, the depths of the intimacy that could be formed would be beholden to the matching levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so Edgar Cayce, in one of his writings, had actually channeled that all souls were created at the same time. Meaning like it's like the universe just was, the divine created. Its greatest single creation was the soul, because even though it emanated from the divine, it had free will. It had no identity of the divine. It was able to go ahead and do whatever it wanted. And the souls feel this incredible call back to the divine, and at the same time the divine is calling us back. And so that journey into consciousness, where that soul is aging, the age of the soul, is really just another way of saying it's getting closer and closer to the source.
Right, and when you get closer and closer to the source, it's sort of harder to meet people who are going to be at, let's just say, a higher level of consciousness.
When you get closer to the source, you are at a higher level of consciousness.
Right, but that sort of it's
harder.
harder.
You're saying there are fewer.
Yeah, like there are fewer.
Yeah, you think of it, the metaphors that come up a lot is kind of like moving up a pyramid, right? Whereas you get closer to the peak, it gets more narrow. Or you could say like climbing a mountain. You know?
And so I know a lot of people who are maybe of a higher level of consciousness, and they struggle to meet other people that are at the same level of consciousness. So
yeah.
How does that work? What is the easiest way to be able to meet somebody who is at the same level of consciousness?
So the first thing that you have to do is you have to throw out any of the typical metrics that you might be using to seek a partner. So, and it's hard to believe sometimes, but even education, like your academics, certainly your practical credentials, like your achievement, your financial wealth, all those are relative distractions. There's no direct correlation between one's practical success and their level of consciousness. They have other ramifications if there's a mismatch in practical accomplishments, but what we're talking about here transcends anything in the physical realm.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you have to position yourself in the arenas that would naturally attract others that are seeking the expansion of consciousness. And so, you know, there are different The typical seeker, those of typical consciousness, because they're elevating to a higher vibrational state, their life is not about the egotic self. It starts to move beyond the recognition of self, and it starts to move more into the collective, or the compassion, or the caring of others. And so you can start to see those energies start to manifest over and over in those that are of higher consciousness. And even a lot of the spiritual schools, some yoga centers, there's different areas that emanate a vibration that naturally starts to bring together those of higher consciousness. Not always, but that's kind of the idea. And so you have to recognize it. You can still have a relationship with somebody where there's a mismatching consciousness. It's very possible, but it's going to require more effort, because it's going to require more patience and understanding, because there will be ways that you're approaching life.
Yeah, they're going to be different.
They're just going to be different. There's not going to be anything you can do about it. And you can bring forth a greater understanding and try to expand the consciousness of your partner, for example, and maybe you're successful with it, or maybe you're really not, because they just haven't learned and integrated those lessons, and you've learned them in lives long since past. You were just born with them because they came forth with the soul. And that's part of the understanding. And the compassion that we have, which is to receive and accept everybody exactly where they are in their journey, is to recognize that we're on this treadmill and we're going and going and going. And simply because one soul has evolved further than another soul doesn't mean that it's in any way better than the other. All souls will eventually reunify with the divine. They're all just at different points in their journey.
Yeah.
No more than a university student would belittle a grade school. You know, a kid in college shouldn't look down upon a child in, say, 4th grade because he's earlier in his academics. It's just where he is in his cycle. It's very much the same mentality that applies to the age of the soul.
And if you're vibrating at a high level of positive energy, or of a high level of consciousness, do you think that that manifestation will attract,
if you're
naturally,
aligned,
other...
So that's it. Two things happen. So first off, if you're aligned, which is that the words that you're choosing and the actions are supported by true intention, and your feelings are understood, so you have a healthy alignment of self, you're naturally going to start to create a vibration that will be a truer vibration. There's so much disingenuous or inauthentic behavior because we're oftentimes conscientious of how we're being received and whether we're being liked, and all these egotic manifestations that inhibit our alignment. But if we have true alignment and we're creating the right vibration, then the two things that happen is that naturally we end up attracting people of a like or a matching vibration, right, to our vibration. And then the second thing is that we show less tolerance for a misaligned or an inauthentic vibration.
Yeah, so we don't want to go back into that low vibrational state.
Yeah, but the opposite is true others as well. That's why they like attracts like. And so if you are misaligned and you have incongruencies within your being, meaning you're not bringing forth your true energy, your misalignment will also attract others that are misaligned. That's why disingenuous or dishonest people always seem to kind of find each other, and they're always cheating each other because they exist in that dishonest state. Whereas the one honest person comes around and sees all that dishonesty, and they try to take advantage of him, but he's like, this is not working for me. I'm not resonating with the energy. Even before he knows what's going on, he feels pushed out of it. And that's the vibration. And this is we're all just pure light and love. We are all just energy. We're fooled in the physical realm into thinking that this is real, right? Obviously you have to nourish the body and care for it, but this is simply a vehicle that allows that soul to do everything it can to continue to mature in its efforts to expand or build on its consciousness so that it can return to the source from which it's come. And that's the age of the soul is another way of saying the integration of experiences that's allowed it to advance accordingly.
Interesting.